that all right with you, Rob? Is that okay with you, Rob?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Are we ready to go?
I think so.
Okay, let's give this a shot. Welcome to the October 18, 2022 meeting of the Steamship Authority. I've got a couple of announcements to make as we get underway here. I would like to inform everyone that Sean Driscoll, the authority's communications director, is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. Is there anyone else making an audio recording of today's meeting? If so, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon, or if you are joined by phone, by pressing *9, or simply raise your hand in the audience.
It's a hot static. Can you use that? Record it.
Rich, how many times?
You can finish on.
Thank you.
Pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, in line with social distancing guidelines following the COVID-19 pandemic, Ms. Tierney from New Bedford is participating remotely in today's meeting because her physical attendance would be unreasonably difficult. Ms. Tierney's participation in the meeting by the Zoom video conferencing app will make her clearly audible to us, hopefully, and us to her as well. And as a result of the remote participation, any and all votes taken by the members today shall be by roll call votes. First order of business on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 27th, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion or comments or discussion?
I move.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. All in favor by roll call?
Jeffrey, I.
Jones, aye.
Falcon, I.
Randy, aye.
Tierney abstain.
Next item is the Port Council's report.
Good morning, Board of Governors. Can you hear me? Hello. Morning, Board of Governors and Madam Chair, and welcome to Martha's Vineyard. We met on October 11th, Tuesday, October 11th, and I guess you'll have many of the topics today. Just wanted to report in that one, we voted in favor of extending 41 North's agreement for freight service to Nantucket through the end of December. And just to point out, we also asked the owner of 41 North about freight service and his interest in the bid. I encourage all of you to listen to what he had to say. I think that's the be live that you can watch that on video. In addition to that, we also voted in favor of unanimous vote for the draft of 2023 operating budget. And we also voted for the proposed draft of the 2023 rate adjustments. And finally, we voted in favor of the transportation agreement with the Martha's Vineyard Regional High School. Any questions? All right, thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. General Manager's report.
Good morning. In addition to myself, Terrence, and Mark up at the stage here, Courtney Oliveira, the Assistant Treasurer, is here. Bill Cloutier, our Project Manager for the Woods Hole Project, and Allison Fletcher, our Shoreside Director, is in the audience. So the first item is an update on the website, and Sean, if you can walk us through that.
Morning, everybody.
Morning,
Just-
Sean.
Quick update, the ADK design team is continuing to support the technology team as they work to bring the designs into development. The content strategists are focused on revisions to any pages that were previously submitted and developed for us, that the content around things like program landing pages, lost and found safety and security and so forth. Following some alpha testing, modifications are being made to certain aspects of the mobile design, including the book vary button, streamlining the confirmation flow and making the add a waitlist option on the trip selection page, easier to find. The front end tech team is coding various internal pages, including the governance page, the account pages, the ability to rename reservations, ability to purchase, reload, and check gift card balances, etc. And just as a reminder, the launch date has been moved to March to account for delays in securing a content management system and switching the credit card processing company to the authority. So that, happy to take any questions.
Right. Thank you.
You have to turn it on.
Thank you.
Good, okay. I'd just like the board members to know that Mr. Kao, Mr. Salito, myself, and Mr. Jeffries have requested a meeting through Sean with ADK to spend a couple of hours sitting down personally, going over this on progress, on the status of issues and the evolution and development. So I want everybody to be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
When did you do that?
Hopefully it will be 2 weeks from
Oh,
today.
this is two.
Okay.
It hasn't happened yet.
This has not yet happened. Letting you know.
Is that? Excuse me, but is that something that? I think, we certainly have some key players in there. Is that something that the board itself should participate in? I don't understand, is it kind of a roundtable type of thing? And, just throwing out ideas and whatever, just don't know the convulsions. Thank you.
If I may,
Sure.
so my understanding of that meeting is to, give, Jim, John and Joe, firsthand, testing of the system to go through the process. We'll be happy to make arrangements if any other board members would like to similarly have a show and tell, so to speak, on the progress that's been made thus far.
Yeah, I just add to that, Bob, that John Hale has had experience, extensive experience in software. I've had a bit too. Peter's had some as well. And I've expressed concerns about the issue of garbage in, garbage out websites in the past and coordination of information going into the site. So we wanted to have a little bit more of a deep dive into where we are with development. We spent more than 80% of our money already on this project. And I want to get better level of comfort with where we're going on. It's very important. Yeah, I think.
I think it's a good idea. I just didn't know how broad this is going to be, that's all.
Got it. Thank you.
One additional thing that Sean didn't mention is that the bi-weekly news, there's been 19 of them issued with updates on this project.
Thank you.
So the next item we have is an update on the Woods Hole Terminal site work. So Sean's pulling up the Bill, if you can step forward.
Good morning, everybody. So far, Lawrence Lynch has been working on the south side of property line, extending the retaining wall that we started with the marine contract all the way up to the freight shed. And then there's on that side as well, there's a new water line going in. This is all in prep for going to the next phase of raising the site elevation. And they're also working on the first phase of raising the site elevation and installing stormwater this week. Okay, Sean,
Can you verify more where I can see this?
I'm sorry.
Maura, can you see the slide?
I can, yes.
Thank you.
So this is a fix to this sewer pump out line. Right now, we're working on the first phase of raising the site elevation, which is at the foot of Cowdrey Road. and they hit the sewer pump out, line and had to repair it. That's what that picture is. Next one. This is some of the stormwater, structures that are being installed right there at the foot of Cowdrey. Next one. We had to move the, ticket booth out of the work zone. That's what's happening in this picture. Next. And we had to, get some temporary wiring to that booth, so that's what the electricians, did in this picture, it's seen in this picture. Next. This is the work zone, and this is what we call the 5A work zone, area at the foot of Cowdrey where the stormwater is going, and we're raising this elevation up to about, +8. Next. This is the broken sewer line that we repaired in the earlier slide. Next. This is again the work site. The area that you see all dug up was where the old sewer pump out pits were. They've been removed and all that is going, and some of the electrical work there, you see the green box in the middle is where the we're had to put that underground as well. There's some electrical and communications going to the back booth to that green box. That's it. I'll take any questions.
More of a comment, just as we move into the construction phase where it impacts more of the areas where it's the pedestrian traffic to and from the ferries. Just that we have a plan both in terms of marking safe pathways as well as erasing the pathways that are no longer applicable. I know that there's quite a bit of chaos down there, both also on the town side, and happy to report that the town actually is going to increase its signage and pathway markings on Mustard Street. But I am concerned about the pedestrian safety.
Reline the pathways. I'm not sure in the middle of the winter if that's going to be feasible, but we'll do our best. We do have, I must say, before we even started, we had all kinds of drawings and paper work on where the staging would be and how the pathways would be. So we do have a plan, and I've shared that with Lawrence Lynch so that we're coordinating our plans together. But yeah, we're doing our best. It's as you know, there's 6 different work sites for this phase of the work zone. So we have to transition and move people around, and it's going to be a little tricky, but I think we got a good contractor, and the operations has been working with us very well, and we're getting on staging and foot traffic paths. All goes well. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So the next item is an update on the Nantucket dredging project. So, Sean.
Sorry.
The 4th page.
Yeah, I don't know. I need just 1 second to track it down, sorry.
So over at our Nantucket terminal, Sean's doing that. It's used quite often for barge unloading along the base of the facility. It's the only dock on the island that's capable of such an operation. Staff has been receiving reports over the past year or so that the barges have been grounding, that there's a sediment buildup in the front of the base, but there's also some spots that are outbound of the base of the dock. So our captains are getting more concerned as well. So we've had surveys done of the area. We performed soil testings.
Do you have it? I don't have it on my computer. I can't get to
Well, we'll go without it. So basically, the dredging project, which will be coming later for the contract. Move about 3,500 yards of material from the face of the dock, as well as in what is the south slope, the high-speed slope that's used primarily. But it will also be to knock a couple of the mounds down as well in that area. So we're hopeful that we'll be getting, right now, we're still waiting on 2 permits. Three permits, one of which is the DEP, which the comment period ends this week. We're waiting on the Corps of Engineers permit, which at this point has taken a lot longer than we anticipated, but I guess they have some staffing issues. We're hoping to get this done, get all the permits in line. We can do this dredge. It's going to be a relatively short dredge that's being performed. The materials going to be put on the dock, dewatered, and then taken away from one of the island contractors. But we do run up in the time of year restrictions in January, with is the winter flounder is in that area, so therefore we have to get this done before then. So, was the third permit come?
So there are 3 permits that are outstanding. We have the local Concom permit. There's a 401 water quality permit, which is a DEP permit. And then there's the Chapter 91 DEP permit. And then, of course, the Army Corps will that we'll get by the early November. The 2 DEP permits we anticipate getting, first week in November, late October, because their comment periods are up this week, so they should be wrapping up. We'd like to do this work November, December timeframe. As Bob mentioned, we think it's like 2 weeks worth of dredging, so it shouldn't tie up the dock too long.
Yeah, Bill, a couple of quick questions on this. It seems like the plan it called for a 10-foot depth in K11. Is that correct?
No, it's minus 14. It's we're considering it maintenance dredging, so we're going back to the original design. It was minus 14.
Was that shown on the plan?
Yes, I think, yes.
Oh. Well, that's good. I know there was a question before council meeting to you whether this has ever been dredged or not before. And I think you said to your recollection, I hadn't, but there has been maintenance dredging to dig out the spoils and the spillovers. That's not true.
It's not considered maintenance dredging to dig out the spoils. That's just picking up the droppings. So that wouldn't be considered in DEP's language as dredging. That's just picking up whatever spills on a daily basis. That happened on some occasions, but lately they don't have the right equipment to do that anymore. So the only dredging that we had a record of goes back to 1984 when they built the dock. That's what shows up in our chapter 91.
So you may also recall that the barge operators when they're doing that are allowed to do a reclaim for any materials that still over the side. As Bill mentioned, sometimes it's done, sometimes you don't have equipment that reaches deep enough to get it. You may recall a year ago at this time, we did do an emergency dredge because there was some even lower spots in that area that had to be done, but we were limited to under 100 cubic yards during that dredging.
For some reason, I didn't see, -14, I saw it -10. There was a section of the plan that called for that, and I don't know if that's current depths or whatever.
That's the current depth.
Okay,
Okay, so but the specs call for dredging that area up to -4.
okay, you don't have to know the draft of the badges offhand. I mean, they come in just waterline, they're mostly underwater.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the barges, but I know that right now they're planning their trips around high tides because they're afraid they're hitting bottom, I'm hitting the bottom.
But that makes sense. Do we ask them when they have spillage and things like that, that they help us dredge that out, or is that just?
We've been going back and forth with them for a better part of a year about that, and the problem they have is they don't have a clamshell, they're using an excavator to remove this equipment from land, this material from land, and loading it onto trucks. Unfortunately, the boom on that excavator isn't long enough or deep enough to pick stuff up off the bottom.
Yeah.
So they would have to bring in a clean barge, and that's an expensive operation.
Well, I guess what I'm leaning is to, we charge them a fee. And do we figure in that fee, what it's gonna cost us on an annual basis to, handle the spillage? How does it work?
Yes, so the rate that we charge for the unloading of the aggregate is purposely low, because of, we don't have the capabilities of transporting all that material on board our vessels. It's a more efficient way to be doing it. Again, we did one emergency dredge a year ago, and then it's been over 30 years since we had to do this before. So the bigger issue is the base of the pier itself, where the barges rest up against, and you see that there's under procurement, there's another item there to do some rehabilitation work there as well. But in terms of it, there's barges that bring over aggregate, there's barges that bring over modular homes, and there's also a barge now that's been bringing over some trucks, 41 ones. So.
Okay, thank you. But I'm still trying to get at the thing that we just consider. I don't mind, the low prices. I understand that. And I know we hesitate every time it comes across to up the aggregate fee for $1 or something like that. And we really agonize on it, which is fine. But I'm just saying that there's a continual maintenance project. Continual maintenance project on the dock, and I just want to make sure that we're factoring in, feasible.
Yes, so the cost of any of the repairs to that facility, as well as Hyannis, are factored into the Nantucket cost of service, as is any dredging that we do in Woods Hole or Indian Haven and Elm Plus. So we do account for that. It's built in, may not be directly built into a barge rate, but it's built into the overall cost structure. Okay. Not hearing any other questions. Moving on to the proposed 2023 reservation timelines. So staff, I want to share the proposed 2023 reservation timeline. The authority is once again planning to split the internet general opening by island in order to try to manage some of the demand. The timeline that we have is as follows. The Head Start, which is done by mail and internet only, is from January 10th through January 16th, 2023. The general opening internet for Nantucket will begin on January 17th through the 23rd. The general opening for internet only on the Martha's Vineyard route will be January 24th through the 30th. And then phone opening will be starting on January 31st. The Head Start transfer deadline will be May 15, 2023, or 30 days prior to travel, whichever occurs first. Fall opening will be on June 12th, and the winter opening, the winter schedule will be October 16th. So going back to the general opening on, for both of those general openings, our reservation office hours will be extended to provide some support for customers that have issues with their passwords or whatever. So the office hours during that time period will be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then just to include some information regarding the profiles. So for the Head Start program, those are available for those who are actively, the profile is active participants in the 2023 Islander Preferred or Islander Preferred excursion programs. Participants are allowed to make up to 5 reservations one way before the general public is allowed. 3 of the 5 reservations made during the Head Start may be designated as transferable. The transferable Head Start reservations, as I mentioned, need to be transfer slip must be sent no later than May 15th or 30 days prior to the first segment of the reservation, whichever comes first. And that must include the customer's name, their address, the year and make of the vehicle that they'll be traveling with. Head Start profiles must to be profiled in the Islander Preferred excursion or preferred programs. It's every 2 years. So this year, any customers whose profile ends in even number will be sent renewal applications at least 30 days prior to the expiration of the profiles. Applications are also will be available online under our policies, forms, and information. The staff summary did indicate that there would be 5 Head Start reservations. Since this was prepared, staff has been looking, and we actually will be looking to move that to 10 Head Start reservations. The additional 5 have to be in the name of the profile. They're not transferable. They have to be directly in to the customer. That way, when people have weddings or whatever in the summertime, it gives them an additional opportunity to get that space before we open up for the summer reservations. So that will be a change. We're still working on the programming changes, but we anticipate that will be able to be done. So we're going from 5 Head Start to 10. The additional 5 have to be in the name of the profile that's making the reservation. You know what? Allison, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't want to add.
Be able to pass the mic. So just so that I can underscore that for everyone, as a result of the issues raised over the last summer from Islanders of difficulties getting reservations, what we've just done is we've doubled the numbers of advanced reservations that can be made early by Islanders to travel off the island and back on the island for the summer season. And I thank the authority for having taken that into consideration and doing that. The other thing is, Allison, you've had staff shortages and reservations throughout the past year. We had a great early opening last year. Are you comfortable with your staffing going into this reservation?
Yes, we are right now. We actually have hired a few more reservation clerks, so we're getting them all geared up and ready for when this happens.
Great, thank you.
Surprised.
Although we're still looking for additional clerks, so anyone that's listening to this, if they were looking for a job, I can go to steamshipauthority.com.
Flash about.
All right, so moving on, Next, we have a request for a licensing agreement extension for 41 North Offshore LLC to provide freight transportation services between New Bedford and Nantucket. And Terrence and I will walk through this. So back at the beginning of this month, we received a request from 41 North Offshore inquiring about extending the current license agreement, which expires tomorrow, I believe, to extend it through the end of the year. They would like to have the ability to run one additional trip per week based on demand for service from New Bedford to Nantucket. Thus far for this service, they made 11 round trips. Their original request was that they were planning on doing 2 round trips a week. They cut that back to 1 round trip. During the 11 round trips that they made, they carried 55 vehicles in total. So it's about 2.5 vehicles per trip. Most of the vehicles that they transported were either unable to find space on our service to Nantucket, or they had multiple units that they wanted to move at the same time. So they did do it was events, whether it's weddings or fundraisers that they need to bring over multiple vehicles to support vehicles for that. So that's primarily what they ended up using it for. So they want to, they're seeking an extension of the license till December 31st. We'll be working with, they'll be continuing to work with the Nantucket terminal manager on the arrivals of that. This may be impacted later on, as you'll see with the dredging, as well as the work that needs to be done in the bulkhead. Those are approved. But this barge is capable of docking in a slip, so they dock and then they drive the vehicles on.
No, I just want to stress that the operator who's been doing the work is working really well with their staff. Fills in some gaps that we might have on the Nantucket route. And the Port Council's meeting on October 11th, they unanimously approved the recommended to extend the license to the end of the year.
So staff is looking for staff's opinions to approve 41 North 6 request to extend its license to operate a licensed freight service between the Bedford and Nantucket from October 19, 2022, including on December 31st, 2022. Recommending that to the members.
Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Jeffrey?
Just a comment, and I know this was discussed with 41 North Port Council meeting, and I apologize for not being able to attend it. But I think as we look at how to move forward with the new RFP for the vineyard after the last RFP request failed, that this seems to be a model that we should consider putting out for an RFP. It's working so well for Nantucket. So when we're ready to make a motion, I would so move.
Thank you. Having listened to that discussion, I think it's important to recognize that one, this is not a freight boat, this is a barge of the tug. And two, 41 North was pretty specific that seasonality and cost and the irregularity of the service made it commercially prohibitive for them going forward. It's something we just have to remember as we look at this issue. Thank you.
So do we have a motion? Is that what I heard?
I'd like to comment, or you can make the motion and then I'll make the comment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, Mr. Jones.
I'll second.
I had problems with this from the get-go. And for various reasons. One of them was the fact that we weren't gonna charge any type of licensing fee. We had, it was posted, they came in and with the idea of the UPS being the lead and the need for their service. And they said there'd be 70 trips a year. With that, as it turned out, it was hardly utilized by the UPS. The authority had already booked the UPS's trips. And so that questions the need of it. I don't mind doing this and you know, the contract is a businessman and I understand entirely trying to, you know, make every dollar meet and if we can squeeze more time and things like that, that's fine. But I don't like the model that it came under. We said we would discuss that at a future time, and that future time would be after the first of the year if he does come back and make some requests at that time to create a new ferry service, which would have, from what I understand from Bob, it would have to go out to bid and do the whole McGill all over again. And we'd have to, you know, develop the criteria by which we're doing it. Every ferry service that we have right now pays a license fee. And that is just built into it. And so I question that just because it's great, or just because it's whatever, that we didn't even consider, we just passed right by. So in any event, I'm not gonna beat it up, I don't really mind, you know, them extending, but I just want to have a question as to what is the need. The number of trips and trucks and things like that really don't justify a whole ferry service. Or, you know, a part of it, the contractor is very familiar with us, he does a wonderful job on everything he does with us. It's not that question at all, it's just a question of, you know, do we set two different sets of rules for different people coming in? We were talking initially that it might cost $200,000 a lost trips. Every trip a contractor takes, you know, one of our freight trucks and stuff like that, or a freight truck, it decreases from our bottom line. And our bottom line is important, you know, to the ratepayers. So at this juncture here, I'm not ambivalent, but I'm not, you know, ready to stand and make an argument towards my case because I think that it's a short window of time. And I will see, you know, how you and the folks in the my contemporaries here carry the ball.
So in terms of this comments, so if 41 North is to be looking to do it next year, we've already discussed that it would be a whole new application process, which would mean we'd be putting it out, we'd be posting notices in the newspapers, seeking comments from the impacted towns, so Nantucket, New Bedford, Fairhaven, for public comments. So, what's before you right now is just an extension of what we currently have, and at that point we'll be able to evaluate the full impact of this, and if there is any proposal going forward, we could make any adjustments then.
Any other comments from the board? So we have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote on this. All in favor?
Jeffrey, I.
Jones, I.
Falcon eye.
Randy, aye.
Tierney, aye.
Thank you. Next we have is the treasurers.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Mark.
Sean's going to pull up the PowerPoint for the business summary for the month of August.
Are we doing the business summary first? Or the budget first?
Business summary, please.
Peter, can you switch over for a second? I can't see the menu. I apologize. This is not a perfect. Word here. Okay, thank you.
So the month of August, passenger carries for both routes combined were up 29,615 passengers, 7.4%. Year to date, passengers on both routes combined are up just under 131,000 or 7.1%. Here we can see a monthly comparison, both routes combined of this year versus last year. Here's a breakdown of the vehicles under 20 feet. So for the month of August, we were down just under 4,000 vehicles or 5.4% compared to a year ago. Year to date, we're down just under 8,900 vehicles or 2.2%, where we can see the excursion fares year to date are up and the standard fares in both islands are down. Here's a monthly comparison of both routes combined for the passenger vehicles. Freight vehicles for the month of August, both roads combined were up 12% or just under 1,100 vehicles. Year to date, both roads combined were up 3.9% or just under 2,500 vehicles. Here we can see again the monthly comparison for freight vehicles. Cars parked for the month of August, both roads combined were 8.8% or just under 2,500 cars. Year to date, both roads combined were 6.9% or 7,589 vehicles. Here's the monthly comparison for the cars parked. Trip summary for the month of August. So we had, excuse the typo on the left-hand side of the month. So for mechanical, we had 19 vehicles canceled on the Vineyard Run, none for weather, 11 for traffic. Meanwhile, on the Nantucket Run, we had 6 for mechanical, 0 for weather, bringing the total year to date 104 trips for mechanical, 227 for weather. Financial snapshot for the month of August. We had operating revenue of $19,362,000, which was higher than budget by $911,000. We had operating expenses of $10,658,000, which was higher than budget by $365,000. Adding in the other income and the income deductions, we have a net operating income of $9,673,000, which was higher than budget by $1.4 million for the month. Year to date, we have a net operating income of $16,023,000, which currently right now is higher than budget by $3,355,000. But we're expecting some increased expenses in the last quarter of this year for some timing expenses on some maintenance projects. Breakdown of the operating revenues, as mentioned earlier, operating revenues for the month were up $910,000 or 4.9%. Year to date, we're up about $2.4 million or 2.7%. Most categories are up except the automobile revenue. That's both on the quantity and the mix, where the standard fares are down and the excursion fares are up. Here's a monthly breakdown as well as a year-to-date breakdown of where the operating revenue comes from. Operating expenses for the month were up $365,000 or 3.5%. Year to date, we're down $245,000 or 0.3%. Big driver on the vessel operations, the $834,000. You can see on the third line down. Year to date, most of that's primarily due to fuel, even though we do have a hedge program. We're up about $500,000 in fuel expenses this year. Operating expenses, so we have the month on the left side and the year to date on the right side is a breakdown of where our operating expenses go. Quick snapshot of passenger travel in September. Passengers for both routes combined were up 18,600 or 6.1%. Year to date, we're up 7% or just over 149,000 passengers. Vehicles for the month of September in the Vineyard route were down just under 1,500 vehicles at 2.5%. And on the Nantucket run, we're up virtually almost flat, down 0.6% at 74 vehicles. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
John? Can you go back to the first page, Mark? I want to confirm something. It has to do with passengers.
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to share with the board members as well as the public something that I think is important, particularly since at the number of our meetings, people from the island have raised the issue of our advertising costs as something that we should cut. And I think my fellow board members will remember that in the third meeting of my tenure, so that's now 2.5 years ago, I raised the issue of advertising and was told that advertising from the point of view of the authority was important in terms of passengers coming to the island. And I noted then at the end of 2020, we went through the pandemic, and the Steamship Authority had an operating loss of it was $12 million. Our passenger revenue is also up just about $12 million. And based on the work that I've done and the analysis that I've done subsequently, is that our profitability through the months of May through September is pretty much driven by passenger revenue. And it's not people from the island who are traveling over to the mainland coming back. It's the people from off island who are coming here that, in addition to fueling the profitability of the Steamship Authority, are also fueling the profitability of the restaurants, the businesses, and everything that's tourist related here through the season. And I think that's important for people to recognize that although the majority of the Steamship Authority's advertising budget is expended to Nantucket with its competition with the fast ferry, from the Vineyard point of view, making sure that people, passengers, walk-on who fuel the summer economy here are aware of the Steamship Authority is vitally important, not only to the Steamship Authority's profitability, but also to the island's economic profitability. I just want to make that point, and if I'm off on my numbers, Mark, please tell me.
No, that was very well said. And also, if we remember going back to the 2021 budget, the last time we did have a fare increase, that was because we're projecting passengers to be about 90% of what the pre-pandemic levels were. So we had to make up for that off revenue as well.
Thank you.
I think that's well said, Jim, and, you know, especially with our fast ferry, for passengers, we have very strong competition, right in the harbor and things, and if you don't advertise, you know, you're not in the people's mind when they're ready to travel. So I try, advertising is both institutional and then also targeted, you know, upon passengers. There's no sense of advertising for freight because there's only a finite amount of freight that's gonna wanna go across the pond on any one different day a week, and so there's nothing for that, but you do have to, in any business, you have to keep your eyes in front of the public at all times, so. All you said, Jim, is right on, thank you.
Going over, next on the agenda is the 2023 proposed operating budget. We'll have two parts of the presentation. The first part will be the proposed operating budget, and the second part will be the proposed rate adjustments. And joining us on stage is Courtney Oliveira, who is the assistant treasurer, who plays a key role in putting the budget together.
Here, I'll just scoot you a second.
Sean putting this together, just want to let the board know that we did have two open houses on September 30th and October 2nd. We had 17 attendees, including the media, the board members at the first meeting. And on the second meeting, the night of October 2nd, we had 8 total attendees. So the 2023 operating budget assumptions, what we've done to estimate what the revenue is for the following calendar years, looking at the previous 12 months. So that's August 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2022. Last year and the year before, we had to make some adjustments and assumption changes due to the impacts of COVID. But this year we're using the actual travel patterns and traffic that occurred in the previous 12 months. Big driver in the budget, you'll hear this many times throughout the budget, is the increased cost of fuel. On our budget, we're expecting it to increase about $5.6 million or 69%. Last year's budget, we budgeted at $2.37. We're coming in actual this year about $2.60 roughly. Next year in the budget, we're estimating $3.93 a gallon. Also, big drivers everyone's aware is inflation. For the last 12 months from July 2021 to July 2022, we're seeing inflation was at 8.5%. During the budget, we're not expecting any material changes other than maintenance costs, depreciation, as well as we have an increased interest cost with some bond anticipation notes we issued for the purchase of our 2 new vessels. So looking at the bottom line, we have operating revenue based on the current traffic and the current rates of $129,661,000. Operating expenses were forecasted to be $132,674,000. We have other income of $8.7 million, other expenses of $4.6 million, brings us to a net operating income of just over $1 million. Last year, to put in perspective, the approved operating budget without any rate adjustments was $9.1 million. So generally, we like to be around 7% for our bottom line. Courtney's got to go over the operating expenses for everyone.
The largest operating expense changes between the 2022 and 2023 budget are operation of terminals up $900,000 and general expense up $1.1 million. Increased utility costs are affecting both of these categories, up more than 30% over the 2022 budget. General expense also includes a $300,000 increase to pensions and relief and the addition of the new COO position. Depreciation is up $1.5 million. This includes 7 electric buses with charging stations, 2 new shuttle vans, the new website and mobile app, in addition to the 2 new vessels, the motor vessel Aquina and the motor vessel Monmouth. Maintenance expense up $1.8 million. We have more details about the maintenance project on the next slide. Operation of vessels up $6.9 million. The biggest driver of this increase is fuel, up $5.6 million over the current year's budget. The budgeted price per gallon, as Mark said, is $3.93 in 2023, an increase from the current budget price of $2.37. The 2023 maintenance expenses, this includes $4.8 million for the dry docking of 5 vessels and just over $4 million in terminal, dolphin, and dock repairs. Projects include new HVAC at the Vineyard Haven Terminal and repairs to the concrete decking at the Vineyard Haven Dock. Pier decking repairs and oak bluffs ahead of the 2023 season. New siding in the Hyannis Terminal Building and traffic booth. Installation of a passenger tent at the Fast Ferry in Nantucket. And dock repairs and maintenance, including new bollard installations at the 3 island locations in Hyannis.
The operating revenue projections, as mentioned earlier, we're looking at the previous 12 months. So based on the current rates, we're expecting parking revenue up about 8.1%, the passenger revenue of 8.1%. Parking revenue of 15%, and these are all compared to the previous year's budget, where last year's parking revenue was a little low on the estimate. Freight revenue increasing about 3.7%, and automobile revenue down about 1.3%. And with the automobile, that's both the quantity and the mix of the vehicles traveling, what we're expecting for next year. So this chart on the screen shows what the aggregate in the blue line, total net income for the year, as well as per month, whether we have a net income or net loss. In the red, loss, in the green, it's net income. So we can see through the first 4 months of the year, we have a aggregate net operating loss of about 16 million. When we get to October, we are in the good for about 8.9 million, and then we lose money for the last 3 months, where we come into just under 1.1 million. During the open houses, we had some comments from the general public about debt service. As Jim pointed out, the marketing budget, and one of the comments was a couple different comments about the island's ability to get space coming off the island, which we'll go over that in a future slide later on. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the operating budget, and then we'll go on to the proposed fare adjustments. Also, at the Port Council's meeting earlier this month, as Mr. Cahill mentioned, they did approve this unanimously.
Mr. Jeffrey.
I'm curious as to why we're budgeting, over $1.2 million for the dry docking of the Gay Head when we're planning to potentially surplus that boat at the end of by the summer schedule. I hate to see us be in the same position that we were, that we're throwing good money after bad. I presume we're not going to be able to sell it for $1.2 million.
So I'll fill in. So in terms of this, we're looking at the repairs schedule for the existing fleet, as well as the project that we are putting together to convert the Equinor and the Monomoy. At this point, we're not in a position to say that we will forego the dry dock of the Gay Head for next year, next summer. We anticipate that perhaps by the time we'd actually have to award that contract, we'd have a clearer understanding as to the arrival of what will be when we'd expect the completion of the modifications and the reactivation of the Equinor and Monomoy. So we have a little time there to make that decision. The other piece of it is that if there is any value to the vessel, it's going to be that because it has a valid COI. So the estimate that has been put together includes an expectation that there be some steel work. We can make that decision as we move forward. But if we would run into a delay with the other two vessels, it would be necessary to have that done. But again, I think we do have a luxury of some time here to get a clear understanding as to the final time, the expected timeline of the Equinor and Monomoy.
I guess my preference is, since we're talking about potentially, next voting on rate hikes, and my understanding from our August meeting is that Gay Head's due for dry dock June 29th of 2023. That date sound?
That sounds right.
That I would prefer to not have that in this budget, and basically light a fire under the authority to get at least one of the vessels online as for the 2023 summer schedule, which I know was planned and anticipated. And then if it's necessary, to come back to the board for additional funds in terms of the Gay Head's dry dock.
So, if I may, so in terms of it, while we're still finalizing the package for the conversion of the vessels, we are realizing that there's going to be some supply chain issues that we're already identifying, and we're trying to get ahead of that as much as we can. And so we're hopeful that we will be able to. I think in terms of the estimate that we use for the gate, I think it's based on some of the previous dry dockings that we've done. We have had internal discussions about what would be the minimum required dry docking that we would need to do in order to get a valid COI, which would be the plan. But I think there's a allowance that's been incorporated into the budget estimate for steel replacement, especially in light of what we observed during the container dry dock. And also the fact that we did have to take that, the gate head offline and to address a couple cracks that we found in the hull. So at this point, we don't anticipate that vessel to be quite as bad as the container was in terms of need to chisel out the concrete to replace some of the frames. But we've got 9 months now before that vessel will be going to the dry dock. So these estimates are put together, anywhere from 12 to 18 months in advance of the dry dock. So we do include some allowances.
And the dry dock expense in the budget is $712,000. There's other other maintenance expenses in there. And because of the newness of the Monomoy and the other vessel, that we had a placeholder in the gate, had a containment for some of those B stock, C stock items that we didn't have a separate GL made at that point to hold those as operating expenses. So the dry dock number is $711,000. And when we met maintenance, they pared that down. And the question is, as we get closer to when the bid has to go out to look at that number, if we need to pare it down or less, lower, depending on where the status of the boats are.
If I may just join in this conversation here, I understand exactly what you're getting at, Peter, and I don't disagree with you. However, I look at it this way, that we don't know, what the future is going to bring and how fast we can get these boats online. We don't know when we're going to need the gate yet. It's a little bit like the governor. We were going to scrap the governor, but instead we put new engines in it. And the governor's been chugging along ever since. But without knowing the needs, we can't be caught short. And as for the value of it, you might be able to buy a Boston whaler for the same price the value of this is as junk. And that's just what the Shimachi did. There's not a lot of value. To put money into a boat does not increase its value. It maintains its value. And to make sure that you have a COI that is current will increase the value if you're going to sell it. So, in any event, totally understanding, trying to, the budget and make sure that we're doing the best to keep it as low as we can. I think we need to just keep moving forward. At least that's my opinion.
I guess this is addressed to Bob or Mark Abinson. Is there anything that would lead us to have concerns about delivery dates on Monomoy and part of the schedule that we've talked about?
Yes, so at this point, we were originally hopeful that would be awarding the dry dock contract at this meeting. We don't have there was more engineering work that needs to be done. We have a naval architect who's been working closely with Mark and his staff on the modifications. I'm led to believe that later this week or the beginning of next week, we should have most, if not all, those drawings prepared so we can get the contract out on the street. We want to also make sure that there's enough time for the odds to go through this and make sure that they sharpen their pencils on it. Because of that, I think that the original schedule was that the boat We anticipate the first boat to be done the end of March. Sailed up here in April, a month of training, and then have it available in the middle of May. At this point, we've moved that an entire month already. That it would be coming up in May and perhaps going in line with the summer schedule of June. We're still pushing for that. But a lot of this is going to depend upon the yard, on the ability for them to move the project along. We think the allotment that we have for the time in the yard is reasonable, and we've talked with other, naval architects in terms of if it is, reasonable or not. I know whether Mark's on this as well, whether he has anything or not.
Thank you.
I'm not advocating for us to have a vessel down. I just think as a board, to exercise our fiduciary duty, I would feel more comfortable lighting a fire under the authority to stay on this schedule. And then if it's necessary, come back to the board for the authorization to dry dock, the money for the dry dock for the Gayhead. So I don't know if there's any feeling on the board to support me on that. I would make a motion that we would strip that $711,000 from the budget. But I would say that I would be open then if we needed a special procurement down the road. If we didn't meet the deadlines to get one of the Lodestar vessels into play.
Mark, yeah, that's on.
Mark is on if you'd like to, if he has anything to add about the. Mark, can you hear us, Mark?
Yes.
Know whether you have anything to add regarding the timeline for the conversion and reactivation.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Bob said earlier, supply chain is, we're finding is a challenge, in particular in computer process units for various critical equipment. We're close, but it's just that training period is critical. It's a critical time period. So when we get the vessel back up into Fairhaven and get our crews trained, we feel we're going to meet our timetable, but we need to get the commitment returned back of the tenders from the shipyards, giving their time period that they will require for the overhaul periods and conversion. So we have some supply chain challenges like every industry in America right now, but I think we need to hedge ourselves a little bit on the Gayhead dry docking, in my view, and maybe that risk profile will drop as we get a better affirmation of the time period from the shipyards.
Mr. Chair. And also, before we would issue any contract, the board, even though the money's in the budget, the board would still have to approve the contract to be awarded.
The other issue is that, just as we're doing this year, and we did last year, if we were to cancel that dry dock, again, we're projecting out these other dry docks, 12, 18 months in advance. So whether those costs end up holding, or like what we're doing right now is we're buying materials that to bring them into stock this year as opposed to next year. So they're not hitting next year's budget. We could do the same next year as well. Some of these, when we replace a turbo on the Island Home, for instance, that's a expensive piece of equipment to be doing, and we want to make sure we have spares in-house. So those are some of the things that we end up doing as we move along to remove them from a future year's budget to when we know that we can afford it in the current year.
So in this year's budget, we're accelerating about $1.3 million from expenses in 2023 into 2022, such as turbos, engine parts, and things of that nature.
Okay, so do we have a motion on this, or what do we do?
There was a motion.
There was a motion?
There's no motion yet.
No motion yet.
You didn't make.
Well, I said I would make a motion
Oh,
if we were going to excise the $711,000, but I wouldn't make it if there wasn't a second.
So what's the pleasure of the board? We need a motion.
no motion.
I'll move,
We have a motion to approve, I assume.
motion to approve the 2023 operating budget without modification.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Jones.
And just to clarify, you're talking about to, excuse me, you're talking about, to move the whole budget.
I didn't hear you, Mr. Jones, I'm sorry.
He was just confirming that your motion is to approve the 2023 budget as presented.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Discussion. Mr. Malcolm.
Bob or Mark, is there, you've heard Mr. Jeffrey's concerns, you've heard Mr. Jeffrey's
Concerns, is there any way that you would be comfortable addressing those concerns in whole or in part in terms of the operating budget?
I think at this point, if there is any delay that we have with these other vessels, we're gonna end up needing to have that vessel fully operational. We would, of course, be looking to do the minimum that we would need to do to keep it operational and to keep it COI. At this point, one of the discussions that we had actually yesterday with our external auditors, RSM US, was we need to be doing an impairment test from a financial standpoint on the Gayhead and the Tama, to determine what the fair market value of those vessels are versus what we're carrying them on the books. Since we made the decision that they would be replaced with these new vessels. So that's going to be an element of it as well, that and part of that fair market value, the value of the scrap value actually may be more than what we might be able to find in the market for those, but those are things that we're going to have to work with a marine surveyor to get those two cost estimates, price estimates.
Question on that, will we have that impairment, the fair market value of those vessels, the Gayhead, before you would seek procurement for the dry dock?
We would be getting those estimates prior to year end, because at this point, we'd be wanting to make those, if there is any impairment, we'd want to be making those, we'd be required to make those journal entries in the current year.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote on that. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Okay.
Jeffrey, an unenthusiastic guy.
Randy, aye.
Kearney, aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so the 2023, as we mentioned before, last year's budget was about $9 million. Without any fair adjustments, we're at just under 1.1 million. We'd like to be in the high 6%, low 7% for the overall percentage of net income on our revenue. So looking at that, we need to have, unfortunately, some fair adjustments. And as a reminder, in 2022, there were no fair adjustments on any of the rates. So why the fair adjustments needed? Big driver is fuel costs. I've mentioned a couple times earlier, and we'll go over it a couple times later on. It's about 5.6 million of the $8 million in fair adjustments. Looking at, as we said earlier, the gallon of gas in the budget, 393 versus last year's budget of 237. Additionally, as Mr. Jeffrey brought up in the board about some of the operating expenses, what we're projecting out 12 to 18 months in advance. Here's some examples of other ferry operators who had to incur fuel surcharges in 2022. We can see the fares were adjusted by anywhere from 5% to as high as 18% this past summer. The authority didn't have any fare adjustments at all in 2022. Now that our fuel hedges program for next year has new rates going in, that's where we see the significant increase in fuel prices in 2023. So here's a chart showing what in green where our strike prices on our fuel hedge program was. It basically gives us insurance on our prices. In blue is where we are in this year's budget, 2023, and in the yellow columns, that's what we had for delivered costs. To put in perspective that we've received about $4 million back in fuel hedge premiums through September this year. So we paid $4 million out more than what we budgeted, but we got that $4 million back in fuel hedge premiums. Here's a chart showing the 2022 budget versus 2023 budget and the difference per month. At last week's support council meeting, we're about 1.5 cents off the current NYMEX prices. As of yesterday, we're about 5.6 cents lower than what the current NYMEX prices were. Next slide. Oh, my side, changing on the screen. Okay, on Zoom. Okay, so targeting, looking at roughly $9 million net income. It's shown earlier in the approved budget. We're at just under 1.1 million. We're looking at additional revenue of 7.8 million, where about 4.4 would come from the Vineyard route and 3.4 from the Nantucket route. And that correlates to the distribution of the operating revenue per route. So the bottom line, looking at passenger fares being adjusted by about 1.7 million, excursion fares on both routes about 245,000, standard fare vehicles just under 2.9 million, freight vehicles over 20 feet in length, just about 2.4 million, parking revenue 435,000. And miscellaneous increases, which is really the barge revenue on the Nantucket run, about 145,000. So for the Vineyard route, before we get into the actual rates, one thing I want to mention is, in addition to looking at the fares, as Mr. Malcolm brought up early in the meeting about the issues that some of the islanders have about getting off island. We're looking at adjusting the preferred space allocations, both the quantities and the allocations in the morning trips, as well as the afternoon trips from Woods Hole. Looking at adding in another type of preferred space, which would be a 30-day preferred space, where some people have plans for 7 days is not far enough out, where if I have graduation or if I have a wedding, whatever it may be, to add another layer of preferred space in there so people can plan a little further out. And then Bob mentioned earlier, adjusting the Head Start reservation from 5 to 10. We feel these three things will make it easier for the island residents, especially in the summer season, to get more space to travel on and off the island. But looking at the fares, passenger fares, we're looking at having the adults go up by 50 cents. The 10 ride would go up accordingly by $4, and the commuter book, the 46 ride would go up $9 per month. The adult ticket that equates to about 5.6%. The excursion fare tickets, they were originally, we're looking at $1.50 instead of $1. And at the Port Council meeting in September, the island contingency asked if we could drop that from $1.50 to $1. That only really equates to what the passengers, because everyone here sort of familiar with the excursion rate, that comes with 2 adults and 2 children, where the $1 would equal the 2 adults on the ticket. We're not adjusting the vehicle side of the excursions at all, really just the adult, the passenger side, not including the kids. That equates to a 1.9 to 2.7% increase. Standard fare vehicles would range from $3 to $5 one way. In the peak summer, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we go up $10, and that's just the standard fare. That's not the excursion fare tickets. Freight, we're looking at 8% across the board. And parking permits would be adjusted by $50 on the annual basis. And parking rates from May 14th to October 14th would go up $1. On the Nantucket route would be very similar to what we just talked about on the Vineyard route, where their passenger tickets are about double what the Vineyard rate is. So they'd be going up $1 on the conventional ferry and $3 in the high speed. The conventional ferry that equates to about 5.3% increase. Excursion tickets would be going up $2 one way, and again, that only equates to what the the 2 adults on the ticket are. So that equates to a 1.6 to 2.2% increase depending on the season. Standard fare vehicles would go up from anywhere from $9 to $14 in the during the year, and $20 in the summer on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Similar to the Vineyard side, freight would go up 8%. The barge fees, as we mentioned earlier, would go from $7 to $8 per ton. And the parking would be the same as it was on the Vineyard, going up $50 for the annual permit and $1 a day during the May 14th, October 14th period. One thing that wasn't in the packet was Mr. Lowell from Nantucket Port Council asked if we could adjust the dates of the drive-on, drive-off services to match the change of rates for the excursion fare period. So currently, right now, they get adjusted at the standard fare period. So when the excursion rates go down, the driver service is still high. So we're recommending that it wasn't in the packet. I apologize for the driver services to be changed from 5/1 to 5/14, and instead of going and then from 9/30 to 9/14. So it correlates exactly when the excursion fares change to make it easy for the island residents who are traveling off Nantucket to rely on that service. So here's a graph comparing where the revenue is compared to what the actual space is being used. And in the blue, that's the Vineyard route, and in the red is the Nantucket route. The shaded area is the revenue for each route, and the red and the solid area is the spaces. So we can see on the far left, the excursion fare tickets back in 2021 accounted for 9.1% of the revenue, but used about 26% of the space. On the Nantucket route, it was similar, where it was 5.4% of revenue and 13.5% of the space. In the middle, you can see the excursion fares, the standard fares, excuse me. And on the far right, you can see the freight, where they're on the Vineyard route pretty close to using what they pay for. Here's a breakdown where each category of the revenue proposed rate adjustments is coming from. 37% of the adjustment come from the standard fare, 30% from the freight, 22% from the passengers, 6% from the parking, only 3% from the excursion fares, and 2% that's the barge. Here's that same net income graph we showed earlier, but with the proposed fare adjustments put in. Where in the earlier in the year through April, we lose about 14.4 million. May through October, at the end, we'd be about 15.9 million. End of the year, we'd be right around 9 million. So January through April and November, December, the authority loses a total of $21 million. May through October, we have an income of 30 million, from the 9 million. So for half of the year, we make $30 million. The other 6 months, we lose 21 million. So at the Port Council, they voted unanimously to approve these rate adjustments. If you have to answer any questions that anyone has regarding this.
Sorry, Mark, it's me again.
No problem.
I'm just wondering, given that, the Enabling Act are preambles to be a lifeline to the islands, and how little a yield the proposed rate increases are for the excursion fares, the necessity to raise the excursion fares in terms of meeting our overall budget goals. We're talking about $250,000.
Okay, so the excursion fares, originally we were looking at adjusting them a little bit more to factor in both the adults and the children. And then the Island Institutions of the Port Council asked if we could, lower that to, where the island residents are the ones who traveling off island, and they're, anytime they travel, they have that cost associated with them, as compared to someone like myself from Ashland, where I'm traveling, I don't have that extra cost. Looking at that, we adjusted the summer season rates to offset those adjustments on the excursion fares to make up for that, difference that we originally lowered. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Okay, how much of a bind would it put us in if we didn't raise the excursion fares?
So I looked at that count. What I would recommend is I would offset both from cash flow and income statement. I would recommend offsetting the shoulder season rates, not the summer. And I did the calculation, and if we went up $2 on each route per ticket, it's within about $5,000 of the proposed rate. So come up to $243,000. It's 103 vehicles traveling on the Vineyard route with 18,500 on the Nantucket route. It would be pretty close. So if the board wanted to shift that, that's what I would recommend as an offset.
If I may, so one of the things that we've seen each year, we do the cost of service study for each route. And typically, we've been doing it now for what, 16 years? And during that time period, the excursion fares have consistently been on this route, paying for about 30 to 35% of the cost of that space overall. On the Nantucket run, I believe it's slightly higher. Yeah, I think probably closer to 40%, but it's a little bit higher on the Nantucket run. But it is, understand living on the island, that it's viewed as not being discounted enough, but traditionally it has been 30 to 35% of the overall cost of that space on an annual basis.
Sure. I would love to support Mr. Jeffrey's idea of not raising the rates for people on the island. The concern I have, and I'd address this to Terrence, to our council over there. And the concern that I have is I've had a good bit of correspondence, or as I call it, fan mail, from people from the port communities who are not on the island about the inequity of islanders having cheaper fares than people in the port communities coming here, whether they be from Falmouth, Hyannis, or New Bedford. And that raises a concern in my mind about the fairness and legality of this pricing differential. I was wondering if Terrence would talk to that.
Sure, Jim. Again, and like anything legal with the steamship authority, what's dictated by what the board can and cannot do. Maybe I should know. Sorry. It's the enabling act. So again, if there's any issues, we can go back to our enabling act. Again, as you pointed out in its initial comment, it's the enabling act that dictates what we do. Again, we're here to buy adequate transportation to folks on the island. That's our statutory mission. So I'll go back to that in response to the other questions. And then it's up to the board and its discretion review of the issues to set the rates as to how to effectively meet that statutory mandate. So again, I think you're hitting right on the head. But again, I think the focus needs to be what's the issue? What are the issues for the island residents and how do we meet those? And again, that's all dictated legally by what's in the enablement. So hopefully I answered the question.
So I think in layman's terms, the board can, if they should so choose, could set the rates as they deem appropriate. It's within the parameters of what the enabling act allows for us. If the board so chooses that they feel that the excursion rate increase should be held off. Like Mark's already come up with an alternative, which I assume you'd want to propose that, as part of it, as opposed to just, taking away your, $250,000 out of the proposed adjustments.
This, I find it hard to not have, the excursion rate, be, I got to approach it from this angle, that living on the island, there's certain expenses that you take as normal. And they're more expensive than living on the mainland. And I'm looking about, I understand the excursion rate, and I think the excursion rate is fair. The excursion rate is the same on Martha's Vineyard as it is on Nantucket. And when you get into contractors and people that make their living on the island, they pay full fare to get over here to work. And, I guess if I was living on the island, I'd be saying, just hold the line, make it equitable, but I don't think it's unequitable. Not with, running a 130 some odd million ferry service. You have to pay, I will put it in the terms of maybe a fair share or maybe an equitable share. So I can't really jump up and down and say, let's make it just free. But then, where's the middle ground? I don't know. I don't think, from what I see with all of the other cost certificates in the Vineyard versus Nantucket, I mean, there's a big gap. So are we just tackling the Vineyards part of it, or Nantucket's part of it? The whole thing. Well, I don't think that's a wise move. Thank you.
So one thing, just so it's clear that anyone in the audience or listening to this on Zoom, the excursion rates are steeply discounted for both routes, but as a comparison in the for a vehicle into 17 feet on the Vineyard Run, it's $73 in the off season and $106 in the on season. It's $182 in the off season on the Nantucket route and $246 on the on season. So it's similarly discounted, but the rates that they have on the Nantucket route are extreme, a lot more. So I just want to make sure that the board is clear on there is a difference.
Okay, anything else from the board on this? Do we have a motion or do we want to?
Could Mark explain his alternative funding scheme?
Sure. So if, as you saw in the naming chart, we have a loss in the off seasons. And that's where the majority of the excursion rates do run. And one of my concerns going forward is having all of our net income getting squeezed smaller and smaller into a certain area. So as an offset to the excursion rates, I would go up $2 on both routes from January through May 14th and then September 15th to the end of the year. That $2 would generate an equivalent amount of revenue to not having excursion fares go up. If that's, alternative offset. So to have the excursion fares go to not have a fare increase, corresponding revenue to offset that would be to adjust an additional $2 in the off season to the standard fare vehicles.
Mr. Chairman.
So if I understand what you just said correctly, if we did not increase the fares for excursion people on Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard, you would raise the non-excursion fares throughout the entire year. And that would smooth out our profitability over the year.
So if, let me restate that, so if we didn't go up in the excursion rates, I'd recommend the $2, additional $2 increase, what we already saw on this slide. From January 1st to 5/14, and from 11/1 to 12/31. That would generate approximately $243,000 based on last year's traffic. The excursion fare projection is $245,000. So that would be, if the board chose to eliminate the excursion fare, I would recommend us doing that.
So that's no increase to the excursion fares from either island. And you're smoothing out profitability over 12 months.
It's replacing the lost revenue in those off seasons, because that's when the majority of the
Right,
excursion
but
fares travel.
you're adding revenue
Yes.
to the losing months.
Yes.
Bob, do you have an opinion on
I think we need to offset it somewhere else, and obviously, speaking as the former treasurer, I was always concerned about the hole that we dig ourselves into each year in the off season, is making sure that we dig our way out, and if there is any sort of event, a hurricane or the like, how that impacts our service, and again, we rely so much on those. July and August in particular, for our profitability. And in total, that we need to make sure that we're not digging ourselves too deep. So I think that moving that fare from the excursions to, I propose that it have to be moved to somewhere else, and Mark has come up with a fine alternative for that.
If I may weigh in. I think we should not increase the excursion fares and go with Mark's alternative. That's my thought.
Just a quick question. So when does this end? I mean, we do this year, what are we gonna do next year? I mean, are we creating a formula, that, the things that we're just gonna year by year? Especially when our budget is so tight. I mean, we got $1 million to the good if everything were perfect in the budget, and it's not, it's your best guess. The fact of the matter is that, one override would soak up that $1 million, not even blinking an eye. So I say just let's hold the line. I think they've done a good job of assigning these things. I really don't like to cherry pick on this from the experts who would deal with it daily. So I would just leave it the way it is and go on with our life. If the motion comes up, I'll have to make my decision.
And I just want to make sure that on the recommendation for the budget, it wasn't in the package, it's about changing the driver services dates to match the excursion fares for the entire route.
Okay, I'm fine with Ms. Tierney's suggestion. I think that's a good one. And I would entertain a motion from the board. Mr. Malcolm?
I would move that we accept the alternative presented by Mr. Rosen, as I believe Ms. Tierney indicated. And for this year, we'll go the excursion.
I can't do.
I would move that we accept the alternative presented by Mr. Rosen. We smooth out our income flow over the year, and we forego the excursion rate increase for the islands.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote on that. All in favor?
Jeffrey, I.
Jones abstain.
Malcolm, I.
Ready, aye.
Kearney, aye.
Okay, moving on.
One last thing, every year we have a, transportation agreement with the school district, for Martha's Vineyard High School. And we look at the, travel patterns for the high school. Pre-COVID, they were being charged, we had an agreement for $55,000. Last year, because of difficulties traveling with COVID and the actual usage is down to $33,000. Looking at the travel, the recent travel, the average would come up to $35,000. So I'm looking for approval for the board to enter into the attached agreement in the package for the calendar school year of 2022 to 2023 for the annual rate of $35,000 of transportation. It's a flat fee for the high school. And we'll be coming back in January, February for the following school year to help the school with their budgeting purposes. We'll have a better, instead of coming out this late in the season.
Thank you. I'd move that.
Mr. Malcolm has a motion to approve this. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Jones. And we'll take a roll call. All in favor?
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey abstains.
Malcolm, aye.
Randy, aye. Maura, we just took a vote on the Martha's Vineyard Regional High School contract or agreement rather. Do you have we have a motion to approve it? Waiting for your vote.
Yes, aye.
For that? Procurement.
Okay, so the first item we have in the procurement is a request of vote of the members to authorize the general manager to award contract number 20-2022 Nantucket Terminal bulkhead repairs to the lowest eligible responsible bidder, AGM Marine Contractors Inc. of Mashpee, Mass, for a total contract price of $340,000. This contract seeks to repair the Nantucket Terminal's bulkhead along the east face where the barges dock to unload materials. The wooden fendering system that's was there is severely worn and damaged, needs to be replaced. As well as this concrete sheet pile cap is also damaged and needs to be restored with new concrete. We're also putting in UHMW with its high ultra modular weight polypropylene, which is an extremely tough plastic with high abrasion and wear resistance to try to minimize any damage going forward. 20 bid packages were sent out. We received 2 bids back in the opening on October 13th. AGM contractors submitted the lowest eligible responsible bid. Our budget estimate for this project was $300,000. So staff is recommending that the members vote to authorize the general manager to award contract number 20-2022, Nantucket Terminal bulkhead repairs to the lowest eligible responsible bidder, AGM Marine Contractors in Mashpee, Mass, for a total contract price of $340,000.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Malcolm, a motion to approve. Mr. Jones, a second. All in favor by roll call.
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, aye.
Malcolm, aye.
Randy, aye.
Tierney, aye.
Thank you. Next, we have a request, vote of the members to authorize the general manager to award contract number 21-2022, dredging at Nantucket Terminal to the lowest eligible responsible bidder, AGM Marine Contractors of Mashpee, Mass, for a total contract price of $251,000. As we pointed out earlier, we begin dredging services in front of the bulkhead along the east face of the terminal as well as the south slip. The plan is estimated approximately 3,125 cubic yards that need to be removed. We talked about getting the permits. This is all being subject to getting the final permits. We sent bid packages to 16 potential contractors. We received 2 bids. AGM Marine Contractors was the lowest eligible and responsible. Our budget estimate for this is actually was $900,000, so it's coming considerably lower. Staff recommends that the members vote to authorize the general manager to award contract number 21-2022 dredging at Nantucket Terminal to the lowest eligible and responsible bidder, AGM Marine Contractors of Mashpee, Mass. For a total contract price of $251,500.
Mr. Malcolm has a motion to approve this. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Jeffrey. We'll take a roll call. All in favor, please say aye.
Jones, aye.
Jeffrey, on.
Malcolm, I.
Randy, aye.
Tierney, aye.
Okay, last procurement item is receive authorization to execute a statement of work for digital platform post-launch support agreement with ADK Group LLC in the amount of $348,000. So it will, almost a year ago, the board authorized the award of the contract for the website development of the mobile app, ADK Group. Following the launch, in March, we anticipate there'll be ongoing support that will be needing to do, necessitate, a project coordinator, a project architect, a digital strategist, a front-end developer, and a quality analyst to execute platform maintenance with future growth in road mapping, technical search engine services. So this contract is for a 12-month period. And it's $29,000 per month to $348,000 per year. By comparison, when we have the current website, we pay $308,000 per year for similar services. So we're recommending that members authorize the general manager to execute the statement of work for digital platform post-launch support agreement with ADK Group LLC in the amount of $348,000, starting 90 days after launch for a period of 12 months.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Question.
Thank you. On, off. On, off, on, off. Okay, assuming you can hear me. I've had experiences where ultimately consultants wind up inserting. You can hear me?
Yes, okay. I've had experience over the course of my career where consultants wind up doing a great job of delivering product and then getting themselves embedded in organizations. And it's always been a concern of mine. I was wondering if it were possible to hold on this decision until after we sit down and meet with ADK in the next week or 2 weeks and get a better sense of who they are and where they are with this project, and then come back and relook at that.
Before Sean jumps up and says anything, I think part of the issue is that as we move closer to finalizing the site, even though we're going to be rolling it out until March, they want to be able to make sure that the individuals that are devoted to ongoing support are assigned. So it's perhaps a scheduling concern on ADK's part in terms of the people who have been working on the site already in the code that's required and what we're trying to accomplish. Their availability or whether they're going to end up being assigned to other projects that's the need to be. So I don't know what Sean has anything to add in that regard, but that'd be my.
I agree with what Bob has to say, but that being said, if it's the board's wish to wait a month, then ADK is on the call and I'm sure they'll be able to hold those personnel. So it will be up to the will of the board. We do have someone from ADK on the call as well, if you have any questions directly for them.
I would just second Mr. Malcolm's concerns, and equally concerned that we're bundling kind of the ongoing maintenance with strategic growth and road mapping, that we're going to have the same contractor who helped us develop the mobile app and website, then run the metrics to determine how well it's working. I don't know if it's smart to bundle those two. And I'd like to know more about AEK's performance and experience on the end of metrics in terms of rollout. So I would back Mr. Malcolm that we table this, even if it requires a special meeting.
I wouldn't anticipate this would require a special meeting, but we can table it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on, we have old and new business. Is there anything really new business for the board?
Not from the staff.
Mr. Malcolm?
I wonder, Bob, if you could speak to the CEO interview process and search process.
You trying to tell me something?
I'd be more direct if I were.
We conducted, this is a preliminary round that Human Resource did. There's been a round of external candidates. I believe that there's one more that needs to be done, and there's a couple of internal candidates. And then we'll be narrowing the list down for second interviews.
How many interviews have we done?
I did 5, Janice did, I think, 8.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, are you still on with us?
Yes,
Do you have any items that were not reasonably anticipated?
I do not.
Public comment? Yes, ma'am, we're here.
Prior to this. Prior to this morning, my only interaction with Steve Chippewa has been your customer service, your reservation system is wonderful. I love talking to them. And this morning I have a much greater appreciation for what you guys have to do. However, I have a rental property. I'm dependent on that rental income for my living here in Maryland, which is not expensive. And I had 4 cancellations last year due to people couldn't make a ferry reservation. They actually reserved with me and called me right back, said I can't get a ferry. So I asked around and the Islanders talk and I heard some information, but I've gotten very confused as to why that happened and going forward, what can I expect? I eventually last year had to change my reservations, my Saturday to Saturday reservation to a Monday to Monday, which gave me other implications. The booking services that it's just confused the dates of whether the elements visible people as a result. So I'd like to know, first of all, what happened last year. Some people said that if you went online, you couldn't get a reservation, but if you called someone, you could get a reservation. Other people said, no, that's not true. And then people said that they were on boats where there were plenty of spaces available. So I'm just asking for clarification, and I need some information for deciding how I'm going to do my bookings for this year. Appreciate your help.
Okay, so there was a couple of issues that we were trying to address. One may be that the system, if you had a preferred space or profile for that, what it was doing, it was only showing the preferred space that was available or not available. It wasn't allowing for the non-preferred space to be switched. So we're working on getting that resolved.
I don't know the difference between preferred space and I don't know what that term means.
So if you're an island resident and you're in our system and you're on the street list and your vehicles are registered on island, you're eligible for the excursion rate.
Right.
And the preferred space is only for people that are eligible for the excursion rate or are preferred that have a residence on the island but don't have a settled place of abode on the island. Seasonal residents, so the space is set aside and as we mentioned earlier, right now it's available 7 days in advance or 1 day or the day before. We're looking to allocate some of those spaces to be available 30 days in advance. We're also looking at the trips that they've been allocated to to see if we can shift some of those to early morning trips that, the islanders need to get off island to do whatever they need to be doing off island and getting back.
My concern is visitors, not islanders.
So the visitors this past January for the Vineyard route, I think it was a record year in terms of the number of bookings that were made in advance for the summer, that first week. For that first day in particular, was extremely busy. Some of it is a matter of the mix of the vessels that we have. So we have vessels in which, depending upon the weight of the vehicles that show up, it changes what we can and cannot put on that trip. We're trying to get a better handle as to forecasting what those weights may be of those vehicles, so that way we can make a determination ahead of time whether that space is available for any customer, whether it's an island customer or a standard fit customer, to be able to utilize that space. Unfortunately, what's been happening is it's been earlier in the morning, we end up moving vehicles ahead, or if there's a no-show for a truck or whatever, it ends up cascading throughout the day. And so we're trying to get a better handle on that. It takes a lot. It's a more of a manual process in terms of looking at it, because the allocations are unique to each vessel, and we just need to be doing a better job of looking at that space ahead of time and making sure that it's available. So, and there were some instances that I'll admit we did drop the ball. There was trips that were out there that were flagged as being available for freight, and those weren't made available for automobile traffic. And then come the day of sailing on the weekends, there was actually no freight to that. So also we have nearly a full load of cars that we're able to take it. So we'll be working on making sure that we stay on top of that, to identify those ahead of time prior to the 14 days in advance for cancellations, and also for the wait list. That way, I would encourage any of your renters, if they don't find the space that they want, that they should use the wait list. The wait list is a fantastic tool.
Yes, I'm aware of it. It's been successful for me. But generally, would you advise me to continue my Saturday to Saturday reservations? Do you foresee any change from last year? It was the Saturday to Saturday that was the problem.
So obviously Saturdays and Sundays are peak travel days, as it's Friday, as it is now. So
I've been doing this business for almost 20 years, so this year was like ridiculous. So I don't know if there's any chance that if there's anything you can convince me that it's going to be as good as it was other years.
yes. And part of this is going to be that if we get the second vessel in the Aquina for the summertime, that will also free up space as well. We'll have a better understanding as to when that vessel is due to arrive.
May I add something to your question?
Hello, the specific question. I also have been here for considerably more time, and the island has never been this crazy. We've never had this many people. We're sinking under the weight of money, is something that I can say. But if you have the ability to change your rental period so that people aren't coming and going on the weekends, that would probably be helpful, because our weekend traffic has gone crazy. Sorry, it's been very significant. Thank you.
Other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Caroline Cooney, Martha's Vineyard Chamber of Commerce. And I was curious about if you are tracking the capacity of passenger traffic during the summer, and how often you actually reach that passenger capacity, or do you ever?
Yeah, so on this run, the island home holds 1,200 passengers. The Martha's Vineyard is 1284, I believe, off the top of my head. So we generally don't have a passenger capacity issue on this run, other than on the freight boats. So the freight boats, this Sankaty actually has a 290 passenger capacity, but the container and the gate had are 143 passengers, I believe. It's challenging there, once, particularly on a weekend where we're putting, 40 cars on board those vessels. You get 2 or 3 people per car, so there's limited walk-on ability. But overall, I think, and that's one of the things that when we do for advertising is that we are trying to get the passenger walk-ons. And that's where we have all the capacity. We don't have the vehicle capacity. That's why we don't target that. And we do have on the Nantucket route, we do have a lot of competition from the other carriers as well as the
Yes.
And so are you reaching capacity at any time where, we're not even trying to get more passengers whatsoever, or are we still looking for passengers in every month of the year?
Yeah, I think the number of times in general that we would hit passenger capacity on any given day is, we're not there, we're not close to that yet. There will be individual trips, and obviously, I believe earlier this year, there was a rainy weekend day in which one of the other carriers stopped service and sent all the people to us. And there was a line that was going from up Water Street, Vinny David, to get on board the vessel. In the off season with winter storms or whatever, the captains do on occasion will limit the passenger capacity to the interior seats, knowing that people can't be outside.
I was also curious, in order to sort of mitigate the tourism to our island, have you ever considered doing rates per month rather than seasonally? Because as you know, like right now, August on the island is pretty much maxed out. So have you ever considered doing specific rates for, say, August is higher than the rest of the year, simply to try to move that traffic to some of these other times?
Yeah, previously we did have a summer passenger rate and an off-season passenger rate.
Not for passengers, just in general.
The vehicles we do it in particular in the summertime, we also have as Mark pointed out earlier, there's a premium that we charge for vehicle traffic on Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays in the summertime as well.
But not specific to month.
Not specific to month because June, July, August is busy time anyway, so they're fairly similar. Earlier in the summer, it's people coming to the island. In August, it's people leaving the island to get back to the schools and things like that. So.
Thank you, and thank you for not raising the excursion rate, because living here, that does make a difference.
Welcome to Martha's Vineyard. Good to see you all in person for the first time in a long time. I want to speak about that excursion rate. I think that what the staff had done and what everybody had agreed to by raising the passenger ticket was fair and equitable for everybody. As the way it was set up, I pay an extra $1 to walk on the boat, but I don't pay it in my car. So the board, as your vote today, you just gave up $250,000 into perpetuity by not raising that rate today by that little bit of money. And I think it was very equitable just to only be charged for the passenger. Because everybody else is paying that same $1 going and coming. And it was a very reasonable rate. So if you look at the regular rates that Bob had quoted with respect to the non-resident versus the resident rate, those non-resident rates did not include passenger tickets. So when you have a non-resident passenger ticket, a boat ticket, or a car, they're still going to put in an extra, it's going to be $16 or $17 per person per couple, or who's going to be the new rate, 8 or 9. The new passenger rate is gonna be 8 or 9?
Nine.
9, so it's $18 worth of dollars is built into that excursion rate for us here on the island. And I think that the board would consider reconsidering that vote and switching it back to where it was. In fact, it was as recommended, be a really good idea. I really think that you're erring by trying to shift it somewhere else, because once you don't put it on the excursion rate, it's lost forever, and you can never get it back. Because you're gonna lose that $250,000 this year, next year, and every year thereafter, until you have to finally raise them. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I have somebody from the Zoom. Shane Corey.
Hi, Shane Corey with Toscana Corp on Nantucket. I just had a question now that the dredge and bulkhead repair contracts have been awarded. What's the board's plan to start discussions with that contractor about how we can limit the impact of those projects on current barge offload operations for the estimated 2-week dredge period and the estimated 6-week bulkhead repair period?
So Shane will be in contact with the AGM and sit down with them on the schedule. A lot of this is, of course, going to be dependent on those final permits that we need for the dredging. So we'll try to make sure that this, ideally, we'd like to try to coordinate those be concurrent, so that way it minimizes the disruption. But we still have to be with AGM on that.
Okay, thanks. And will you keep the people who have scheduled reservations updated on that?
Yeah, as soon as we're able to determine what the schedule is going to be, we'll be contacting the operators.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Mr. Salzberg.
Hello, could you go to the microphone, please, Rich?
Sure. Could you folks describe the capital improvements you have planned for one or more Vineyard Haven transfer bridges and what brought those about?
I don't know. Could you do that again?
Could you folks describe the capital improvements that you have slated for Vineyard Haven transfer bridges in 2023 and what may have brought those capital improvement, planned capital improvements?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Mark will be coming over, but before he does so, these are operating expenses, they're not capital expenses, so they're existing structures that we'll be working on. So part of it is, knowing Mark's on maybe or not, but part of it is that we have some concrete that we need to be working on to eliminate any potential hazards in terms of slips and trips and falls. Mark?
Yes.
So for Vineyard Haven, you could explain briefly what the work that we're going to be doing there.
Yeah, we're in the process is over the winter period. We're going to be changing the gallows out on the south slip. And we're also going to be doing concrete repairs on the pier and also on the entranceways and various location points on the skirt. I'd really need a drawing to show the exact positions, but we have quite a bit of work scheduled for this winter period.
Thank you.
He said, thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Anything else from the public? Yes, ma'am.
I'd just also like to add further clarification on the website. It's very difficult to, if you're an islander, to get your islander rate clear when you're booking. It's just very, you have to book as a regular, I don't know, it's just very confusing, so I just bring it up. And also, it's almost impossible to read on a telephone.
So, as long as you've logged in, it should recognize whether you have the Islander rate or not. But then, when you initially go in, but as for, the mobile device, that is one aspect of the new project is, the mobile device, optimizing those screens for use.
Anything else from the public? Yes.
First, I want to say I love the mobile device and I love buying my tickets when I'm like running last minute, like so much better than the kiosk, what have you, so it's been a game changer. But, going to several different ports, to several different ferries, has the steamship ever considered doing a pedestrian friendly walkway, Vineyard Haven Terminal, and keeping the car, departure lane sort of the same, sort of separating them for public safety? I do a lot of travel hockey now, and I really get to watch how people unload from the ferry and all the confusion. And so it seems to the main port could be a little more friendly, if it had sort of a more welcoming pedestrian departure point and a standard car. It's just, there's a lot of safety concerns that I've witnessed over the last couple of years as I'm there more for travel for hockey and watching and being on the boat as a passenger more often. Typically living here, I like to take my car, but I've really seen that there's a lot of, kind of people don't understand necessarily how to navigate the terminal when they get off. Whereas no bluffs, it's easy. There's a pedestrian walkway, there's a vehicle pathway, and there's no kind of, you can't miss it. It's very easy and it's pedestrian friendly and you feel safe. Vineyard Haven, I feel like that could be something to be considered to kind of, change the aesthetic and have a more pedestrian friendly experience, since we are looking at increased pedestrian traffic.
So, I'm sure Allison's taking notes and we'll be looking into that, but I think with Vineyard Haven terminal, we primarily put the larger passenger vessels into sub 2. So that way the pedestrian walkway is to the south, north, sorry. But that's something that I'm sure Allison will be looking at. I know that there's been times where we try to put traffic cones to try to separate that, but with both slips being active slips, it's difficult to maintain a truly dedicated area there.
Well, I guess I just envision something a little bit more, pedestrian welcoming, because it is such a working harbor in Vineyard Haven, but yet it is our year-round terminal. I almost envision some signage, welcome to Marcus Vineyard, Vineyard Haven this way, and just as kind of, we need more identifying marks on how to help people navigate the vineyard as it is. And it seems to me priority is to be the lifeline to travelers and islanders. I feel like we should really kind of think of ways sooner rather than later to make that travel and arriving even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? Hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Just a quick note, we have an executive session on the agenda, but I'm being told we are not going to be doing an executive session. So now we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jeffrey, aye. Malcolm, aye.
Randy, aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you very much.